All right, and here we are back for another video in the series of lunar stations or nakshatras in both Western and Vedic astrology. Um, so, as I said in the previous two videos in this series, a lunar mansion is the amount of degrees of space relative to our perspective that the moon moves in one day. So the sun goes around once, back to dawn, dawn to dawn. Um, the moon will have moved 3.2 out of 6, or 13 and 2 out of 6, or 13 and a third degrees. So as I said in the previous two videos, most people think in decimals numerically. The best way to think about the orbit of the moon is to look at it as a 27-day cycle of 13 and a third degrees of the ecliptic each. So, depending on where a certain planet is, it could be, let's say, in the sign of Aries, but it could be in the first lunar station in Aries or the third lunar station, which spans from Aries to Taurus. So each of these lunar stations, no matter what planet is there, it's going to have a different co-ruler. In the same way that the signs of Scorpio and Aquarius and Pisces have co-rulers, Scorpio being south node of the moon and Pluto, as well as Mars, Aquarius being north node of the moon and Uranus, as well as Saturn, and Pisces being Neptune as well as Jupiter. Every sign has a particular amount of lunar stations within it, or nakshatras in Vedic astrology, as they're called, and each of these nakshatras has a different co-ruler. So the first nakshatra in Aries, which the first video was on, is the co-ruler is South Node, and I talked about the effect that the South Node has when you put it in Mars, sign of Aries, as a co-ruler. The second nakshatra, or the second lunar station in the sign of Aries, is co-ruled by Venus, and I told you what impact Venus has and how it's different, how these two types of Aries people are very different. If you were to look at them, you can still tell there's common ground, but they're very different people because they have planets in two different nakshatras that ultimately affect the impact. So while the first Aries is very forward and very sort of like way more assertive, the second type of Aries is more withdrawn and focused on the darker side of things. And this is the third type. So this nakshatra, because the last one ended at 26 and 4 out of 6 degrees Aries, this one is going to extend into Taurus a bit. It's actually mostly in Taurus. So it goes from 26 and 4 out of 6 degrees Aries to 10 degrees Taurus. And that area of the sky is co-ruled always by the sun. So for the Aries part of this lunar station or nakshatra, it has a similar effect to the south node of the moon nakshatra. And by the way, this nakshatra in Vedic astrology is called a Critica. And Critica, the way I think of it as a mnemonic device, it sounds like critical. And that's exactly what these people are. These people are extraordinarily critical, especially in the Aries, the last little part of Aries here. These people think judgmentally of the world around them. And if you remember in the second lunar station video I made, how I said that it kind of has the energy of Pluto, or like a female version of Pluto, like the Norse death god Hel, or death goddess Hel, and like Kali in Hindu mythology, kind of this negative feminine energy. This nakshatra has the extra energy of Saturn. And there's a method I use for calculating that. I'm not going to get into it right now, but trust me, it is coming. It's just really complicated, so I'm going to have to funnel it down the pipe a bit until I'm done with all these. But if you remember, Saturn is a judgmental energy. it is about social responsibilities and obligations, and it's like the man, so to speak. Now, depending on where Saturn is in your chart, that's going to largely depend how you judge things, and it's going to affect the energy of this sign as well. Also, where your sun is placed and where your Mars is placed are going to influence how this sign ultimately manifests. So, while the things I'm saying could very likely apply to pretty much everybody involved, there are always outliers in this kind of thing because everything's interrelated. So, if you really want to understand this, you've got to look at the whole chart. That being said, if you remember, I said in my first ever video of the sun in Aries, how the sun debilitates everything it's across from. Now, that energy of the sun debilitating what it's across from is especially true in the last little part of Aries, that is the first part of this nakshatra. And that's because the sun energy is still there. So it doesn't matter if the sun is in that particular area in your birth chart, the sun energy is still there, and it's sort of blasting or holding to very high expectations the ending part of Libra. So Libra represents other people, Aries represents yourself. So these people are extraordinarily critical of other people. And when you put that's kind of the way you can remember this, is that they're critical. They are critical with the intent of changing the other person into their highest self. So it's not like they're just trying to tear the other person down. They're judgmental in that they want to make that person better. So in Vedic astrology, the symbol associated with this nakshatra is a knife. And the knife being like a surgical tool, the knife can cut people down, but it can also heal in a sense. And part of these people's mission in life is to sort of use that intense, fiery, critical energy to sort of burn other people into a diamond around them. And not everybody's going to like that, but at the end of the day, these people don't care very much. They have a very strong sense of self. And if you give somebody criticism and they don't like that criticism, then that's actually on them if it's valid criticism. Now, part of that is learning to recognize whether your criticism is valid, but part of that is on their end of things, trying to come to grips with the unpleasant truths that these people expose. The sun represents light, Mars represents conflict. It's sort of casting light on things in a way that provokes people into changing, and that change can generate conflict. So these people can occasionally run afoul of society or be seen as antisocial or disagreeable, but that's just because they're trying to explain things to people that people might not be ready to even hear about themselves. Like, for instance, if somebody's an alcoholic, chances are they're not going to want to recognize that within themselves. So if somebody with this placement comes along and is like, hey, or a similar placement, or it's like, hey, guess what? You're an alcoholic. And it's like very upfront in their face, you need to go do something about that. Otherwise, you're going to die and fuck up your whole family. These people are going to be very, they're not going to be happy about that. They're going to be like, dude, I know, piss off. Or, dude, I don't want to think about that. So that's kind of how this energy is. It's very upfront, very direct, very in your face, especially when you're dealing with the Aries side of this. Now, in the Taurus side of this, there is a similar vibe in that it's also quite aggressive and assertive. But I would say the Taurus vibe is a lot more self-interested because Mars is, who rules the sign of Aries, is ultimately a soldier. And that energy can be used to conquer self or conquer others. But primarily with Aries, I would say you're conquering yourself so that you can ultimately compete and conquer the world. Now, Venus, who rules the sign of Taurus, is not a competitive energy. They are kind of competing against themselves for pleasure and comfort, but they are not interested in going out and competing with the world because Venus is primarily interested in stability and comfort. And if you're going out to fight, you're uncomfortable. So that's why Mars and Venus are sort of like opposites. They need each other, but they're definitely not interested in the same things. So, but if you put Sun with the sign of Taurus, these people, number one, become self-critical, and they become self-critical about the vibe that they're putting off in terms of their aesthetics. So these people will really be interested in assimilating a lot of jewelry and redefining their outfit and making themselves incredibly attractive. And they can be sort of passive aggressive when provoked, because remember that active, unstable, fighting energy of the sun is still there. But sun is a fixed fire energy, so people are likely going to have to start shit with them, and that's where you get the idea of like the stubborn bull. Like somebody came, messed with them in their comfort zone, and then it's like going into a bull's pen. They freak out. Whereas the people with the in the Sun Nakshatra, Kritika Nakshatra, third lunar station, with their sun in the sign of Aries, late degrees Aries, these people are going to go out and criticize the world and try to make it shine in a better way through this sort of burning self-criticism or burning criticism of others. So yeah, so basically that's my analysis of this sign. Again, it's split between, it's probably about 1/4 in Aries and 3/4 in Taurus. The Aries people are judgmental of other people and with the intent of making them better people, making them shine, and the Taurus people are mostly critical of themselves, but are also very self-defensive and can get very sort of passive aggressive. They have a strong drive to protect themselves and also make themselves look beautiful, so they can also suffer from low self-esteem. That's one thing people don't understand about the sun. The sun tends to, doesn't mean you're going to have high self-esteem if you have a sun or any planet in a sun nakshatra. The part of the reason the sun shines is because it feels insecure. I mean, that's why, Leo people, they might put off a front that they're incredibly like they got it all under control, but in reality they're really, really hoping that everybody thinks they have it under control, and that it's about appearances, and appearances can be deceiving. That's why fourth from Leo is Scorpio, because these people, Leo people, have an incredibly difficult home life, and they have an incredibly difficult emotional state that makes them want to that makes them want to ultimately shine to prove that they are better than where they came from, better than their homeland. And the same can be true for these people. So whether it's your ascendant, your moon sign, your Mars sign, your sun sign, whatever, your Pluto in this nakshatra, these energies are going to apply in that domain of your life. Now, of course, you also have to look at, again, where the dispositors, meaning like Sun, Venus, or Mars, are in your own personal chart relative. If you want to really judge this nakshatra properly, you're going to have to look at the house placement it's in to understand where this sort of critical energy is going to enter your life, like what domain of your life, whether it's going to be in your work, whether it's going to be in your personal appearance, whether it's going to be in your family, in your relationships, in your aesthetic, wherever this thing is, because everybody's got all of the lunar stations, just like everybody has all houses and all signs. So depending on what planets you have there and where it is in your house system, that's where this thing is and how this thing is going to manifest truly for you. But in general, the critical, burning, improving, surgical energy is always going to be there, and it's going to manifest outwardly when it's in the sign of Aries, and it's going to manifest more inwardly and in terms of your personal aesthetic and your lifestyle when you're looking at the Taurus part of this nakshatra. So that was my analysis of the third lunar station, and the fourth lunar station, which is Rohini, or the moon part of Taurus, is coming next. So check that out when I make it, and I'll probably have that up within the week. Thanks.